I'm Bryce Berry, candidate for Georgia State House District 56, and I'm on the scene.
What's up? It's your girl Fee, and I am on the scene with Bryce Berry. He is going to be our next Georgia State representative for District 56. Bryce, what's up?
What's up? Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. So let's just start with you introducing yourself to everyone and what you do.
All right, so my name is Bryce, and I'm the first Gen Z member of our Georgia State Legislature and the first active public school teacher as well in the state legislature. So, making history, I would be the youngest person I've elected to the state of Georgia since Julian Bond, who formerly held this seat back in 1966, and then Abe Mabel Thomas, who also held this seat back in 1984. And so, continuing that tradition of young folks and changing the face of politics, running because I simply just believe that our state can do better by our people. This is a state that has not expanded Medicaid, that has the lowest minimum wage in the country, one of the lowest performing schools in the country. And so that shows a lack of investment, but also a lack of will to get things done. And so having leadership like a teacher or like an organizer, a young person that's in there advocating for students and families, communities, makes the total difference in our state. So that's why I got in this race.
You're doing some very incredible work, and it is extremely impressive for you to be coming in as one of the youngest and a public school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So before I get into some of the initiatives and things that you'd like to change, tell me about being a school teacher. Do you come from a lineage of teachers? How did you become a teacher?
Yes, so my mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my great-grandmother was a teacher. So my whole life I've heard Bryce should be a teacher. I actually wanted to be a lawyer, and I wanted to be a lawyer or a preacher when I grew up. And I never saw myself teaching, but fate had it that I ended up teaching. And I've enjoyed teaching. We have the stories, we have the experiences, but it really is the students that at the end of the day will bring you back and ground you. As much as middle schoolers can get on your nerves, like it's reminding yourself about, these are students that carry so many burdens with them at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that gives me more reason to fight and more reason to do what I do. Knowing that at 12 years old, 13 years old, 11 years old, they're carrying all these burdens with them. And a lot of those things are like policy decisions by our state. For example, homelessness is a policy decision. Poverty is a policy decision. That's because the state is not working. And so a lot of the burdens that our students carry with us, not just in the city of Atlanta, but across the state, are policy decisions. And so I think it's important. No one ever asks a carpenter how they're going to stay in office, or no one ever asks a lawyer how they're going to do the job. But, it's so atypical to have teachers in office. And so we have got to break the mold of we need more educators in public office.
Absolutely. And I think that an educator has that first insight on how things truly are.
Yeah.
There are so many things that educators complain about. The list is endless. So to have someone representing those that are in education and those who are being educated is going to be groundbreaking. And I don't want to get too controversial, but we know in the state of Georgia, or the South in general, has been pinned against many of our Black and brown minority people. So there are a lot of laws that are in place that do not support the educational system. What are you going to do to change that? Because it seems like so much that needs to be done on so many different levels.
I think when understanding, look at the lens of education in the state of Georgia, you have to understand that there is a $3 billion surplus in education funds. So that means that is just $3 billion that is sitting in our bank account, state account, that is not being used for education, that we have to be using. So there's several things I want to do. First things first, pay teachers more. When you pay teachers more, I am proposing a $65,000 base rate across the state. That would make us the highest in the Southeast and even one of the highest in the nation for where we begin in teacher pay. So when you raise teacher pay, you keep teachers in the classroom, you increase social emotional well-being of our students, you build relationships with families. That is overwhelmingly going to make schools better when kids can build that relationship with teachers and teachers have that incentive to go into schools. Secondly, in the state of Georgia, there is for every one school counselor, there's 450 students. So it should be 250 students for every one school counselor per what all the research shows and how we can meet the needs of our students. So, and having using some of those funds to pass tax credits for folks that are majoring in psychology and going to medical schools, so they can be school counselors and stay in our schools. Also, it's important to know that our schools are failing not just performance-wise but infrastructure-wise as well. When you have schools that have leaky faucets and collapsing walls and the brown lockers and brown walls, that's not like a school, it's like a prison. And then we're conditioning our students for prison. And so we have to make massive investments into infrastructure in our state that makes our schools look and feel like schools. Those three simple things seem to me to be common sense, and they should have bipartisan appeal. And those things that we can get done for less than $1 billion, and we still have $2 billion left over in the coffers. So we can start talking about things like college affordability. We can start going to things like universal pre-K, and still have money left over. But again, it all starts with the crux stuff. There's $3 billion that we're just not spending on education that we could be dispersing right now.
And speaking of the 3 billion, I hear a lot of people saying, "Well, after COVID, this is we have to use these funds." And I'm just curious as to where the funds are actually going, because I noticed that before COVID with schools, students were actually able to have the extracurricular programs. They were able to get mentorships. There were more counselors. There was more funding just to give the students a better experience. But then after COVID happened, that extra funding that was received has been taken away, and now they have even less. They are even further behind academically. So where were those funds to begin with?
So those funds are byproduct of the federal government. So getting deeper down, we have a Republican governor and a Democratic president. The Democratic president passed billions and trillions of dollars of funding so that things go to things like childhood homelessness, intervention programs for reading, things like the other. The governor, who's Republican, is just playing politics and just not dispersing money. So that's the real thing. Or it could be that we're either being charged too much in taxes, which could be another problem, that the people are being charged too much in the taxes, that we have too much money that's coming in and not putting it out. Or there could be fraud in our agencies where they're just not spending the money. But at the end of the day, I believe what it could be is just the governor playing politics with the money that the federal government is providing. And you see this across the South and across several other red states where Republican governors are putting revenge on the Democratic Congress and president by not putting the money out. And then they're taking credit for saying, like, oh, we have $2 billion in surplus, which is not a good thing. That's really just saying the federal government gave you money for childhood homelessness, for intervention programs, and you're just not funding it because the president is a Democrat. That's, again, why I got into this, because that's not the way I think our politics in our state should be run. I don't think we should run off of, oh, you have a D behind your name, you have an R behind your name. If this money is supposed to be used for intervention programs, and we know that in the city of Atlanta alone, only about 30% of black students, black male students, are reading on a third grade reading level. That's in the 8th grade. 30% of black male students are reading on a third grade reading level. Why are we playing politics because Joe Biden's the president? It doesn't matter if the president is Joe Biden or Donald Trump. If the money is used for intervention programs, let's help the people. And so that's, again, teachers, why we need teachers in there. Teachers think logistically because we're smart, but teachers also think emotionally because we care, and we care about our students. And that's the benefit of having someone look at both sides and say, wait, this is just cruelty. It's not only a stupid policy, but it's cruel policy as well.
And, again, I don't want to get too deep into it because these are just my personal thoughts, but it also makes you think, when you think about Atlanta and the state of education, if it's almost like an intentional thing. Because when you think about schools in Buckhead, or when you go out into other areas, their school system, the infrastructure is not set up that way. They have the PTAs where the parents are involved. They have the extra funding. They have the resources and the trips and, everything set up so that the students are going to be successful. And I am just automatically in my mind thinking that there's going to be so much pushback. Is that going to be a process that you're going to have to go through? Is that something you can do on your own? Is that going to take years to do?
It's going to take years, ultimately, because we are in the still minority. But I also say relationships matter. I brought a piece of little. You can see who all has endorsed me in
Mm,
this race. Those relationships are built not because people just know me and I've worked their campaigns. They've also know my work. They know what I've done. And so those relationships matter. I've been endorsed by the entire Atlanta Public School Board. And we need a good school board just as we need a good legislator. And we need good legislators that have relationships with the school board to work in tandem with them. The City of Atlanta Public School Board has a greater budget than the City of Atlanta itself, and that's the state funding them, and a lot of the money stays at the top. So the state needs to be working with our school board and make sure that our money is also being dispersed. Like they need to be working with us for what they really need. My district also includes the Mays cluster, Douglas cluster, which is one of the poorer, more blacker clusters in public schools, but also includes the Midtown cluster and North Atlanta cluster.
mm.
So which is the wider and richer, more affluent. And I say after my campaign, this is a campaign for Bankhead to Buckhead because it really is. The poorest neighborhood in the state and the richest neighborhood in the state, but everyone, no matter where you come from, is deserving of a champion. And everyone's deserving of someone that's going to fight for them. And when we talk about Bankhead to Buckhead, that's the simple thing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like you're going to do some incredible things. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I know that so many educators are going to be cheering you on for all that you're doing, especially having someone else in office that is going to advocate for education and educators with all of the hard work that they do on a daily basis. And they're so underappreciated. Um, I wanted to know, what advice would you like to give teachers? Maybe there's a young boy or girl who is watching you in Atlanta who wants to follow down this path. What would you give them?
My advice is simply this. It's as simple as sending an email. It's as simple as, I give my email all the time, bryce@berryforga.com. It's as simple as emailing me and just saying, hey, I'm interested in politics. That's how I got my start. I emailed one person when I was 17 years old, no, 16 years old, and got a job in a campaign and ultimately just took off from there. But also for our elected officials, my mentor, Representative Phil Lallier, he says it's as simple as invitation. And so not only should the folks that want to get into this just reach out, but it's my job as well to reach out as well. It just has to be a mutual thing.
Hmm.
We can't be the blind leading the blind. We have to bring each other into the vote together. As you said, I'll be the first teacher, and it's the role of legislators not just to hold that seat, but it's also to bring other seats and to bring voting tables, to bring other folks in. Teachers belong in office. This is the first year. My brother Chevy Brooks was the first teacher elected in the state of Georgia, period. First active teacher elected in the state of Georgia, period. That's because the law just changed that public school teachers and active teachers could run in the first place. And
Mm.
Georgia was one of now it's down to 6, but we were one of 7 states that did not allow teachers to run for office. So when Chevy ran for school board, he became the first. I'll be the second. I'm hoping that we have more and more and more to break in the walls, because again, we need teachers in office. Teachers are so crucially important, and they bring a different perspective, and a working class perspective as well. When the majority of our state legislators um, make over $200,000 a year themselves, like because they're attorneys and doctors, and they go home and they
Mm.
do all this stuff. Working class teachers are the voices that we need in office. So teachers, run for office, and to students and young boys and young girls out there, send an email. I'll be inviting you to places, but also you do your part as well, and email me, call me, and let's set up a time. Let's talk. Let's meet, join this campaign, because this campaign needs you. But not just this campaign needs you. This state needs you as well.
Absolutely. And to close out, I mean, that was some amazing advice. I agree with everything that you said as far as teachers and needing educators in office. To close out, how are you going to juggle this while being an active teacher? Because with where
Yes.
you are working, I mean, it runs late. It's about 5 o'clock. It's a full
Yes.
work day.
So the plan is this: I would take an unpaid leave for the 3 months. So we're only in session for 40 days, which I think
Hmm.
is crazy in itself. We can get into that later. I would take unpaid leave for that January through March time that we are in session, and then come back in April and finish up testing. But the plan is to stay teaching. Again, I cannot preach to the choir and say we need teachers' voices and then leave the classroom when it gets hard.
Right.
Um, I plan to stay teaching as long as God allows me to, and for as long as I'm elected as well, as long as God allows me to be elected, I will be taking that unpaid leave for those 3 months. So that's the plan.
Okay. Very, very noble of you to do. Man, well, it's an honor. I feel like I'm, talking to someone who's definitely going to make some crazy, crazy, crazy waves in history.
Thank you.
So this is such an honor. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at Berry4GA56, on Twitter at Berry4GA, and go to my website, berry4ga.com. Sign to get involved, donate, register to vote, but we need your voice. I said, I need you, but also the state needs you. Thank you all so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.